Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Kelvin here. As you can see, we have a very special guest today. His name is Peter, or more well known as Mr. Money TV from Malaysia.
Hello guys!
My first question is, why do you come Singapore? Is it the food is better here?
Hey! Don't hate me Singaporeans, but unfortunately I have to say Malaysian food is still the best. Okay, but I tried some pastry this morning and I thought it was great. So Singapore got good pastry.
Okay, can you share a bit more about how you started this whole YouTube journey thing?
I have actually been a registered financial planner for 10 years. So I've been doing financial planning as a service for a very long time. Then about 2-3 years back, I had a quarter-life crisis situation where I thought that people who needed my help are people who can't afford to pay my services. And that's when I thought what if I can do something that can help the general public who can't afford it, but yet I can make money. So I started out wanting to build a technology company, but I'm not programmer like Kelvin, right? I don't even know how to use WordPress properly, right? So I thought the only thing that I know how to do well is actually talking and giving advice, right? And I had a phone, so I thought, you know what? Let's just put it on YouTube. Let's see whether will people even listen to Malaysian talking about financial advice. And there we are today.
And since then, you have gathered over 100k subscribers. I think that's not a very easy journey. And I think you started off at the right place because, as you mentioned, you wanted to start this mainly not because of money, but because you wanted to help other people. And congrats!
Thank you.
You have made quite a few videos about comparing between Malaysia and Singapore living costs. First step was that Malaysia versus Singapore video. Then you made the second video which says that why 10k is not enough to live in KL. So is it really true that you need way more money than that?
If you compare city to city, I would say yes. Because if you actually look at Singapore, just now we had a conversation as well talking about raising a kid, right? So we're saying that if you're earning about 6k as a household here, it is still quite affordable. Now, we are comparing it in terms of urban living, like public amenities, and are you living close to the city center? Is it accessible? So let's just talk about childcare, right? In Singapore, if you get all the subsidies required, your childcare is probably about 300 or 400 ringgit, Sing dollars a month.
Yeah.
But in Malaysia, licensed childcare is probably at least 500. That's just for childcare. But if let's say that's just half a day, if we talk about full day care, it's probably about 700 to 1,000 ringgit at least. So if you actually are earning about 8,000 ringgit a month, plus insurance, plus having a car, because number one thing is that in Malaysia, if you have no car, it's going to be really, really tough. It's not like Singapore. You can just walk anywhere, right? You can cycle anywhere. Malaysia is not friendly at all when it comes to public amenities. So you need to have a car. That also adds on to that stress. And then when it comes to housing, Malaysia, we don't have so many grants and subsidies for housing. So if you were to stay in a cheap property, like our government housing, like PPR,
Right.
It doesn't have the kind of amenities like a HDB in Singapore.
Right.
You likely won't find many schools nearby. You won't be walking distance to areas and places. There's no hawker center down there. And cleanliness and maintenance, I think if you've been to Malaysia before, you know it's a... So generally, many people don't prefer to live there. So if you're talking about the same standard, doesn't need to be expensive. Just talking about having public amenities nearby, having a walking distance, food courts and stuff like that. You will be looking at a house that is in PJ area, maybe 600,000 to 800,000 ringgit.
Right.
Yeah, and that's less than 1,000 square feet. And there's no subsidies. Yeah, so end of the day, just talking about all these basic living expenses itself, earning about 8,000 ringgit a month as a household in PJ, it's gonna be really, really tough. So the other day, that video that I made, I talk about it as in if you want to include being able to save about 20 to 30% of your household income every month or more, you should be earning about 18,000 as a household to 20,000 as a household. If you're earning about 14,000, then you can probably save about 10%, but you are really not gonna have the flexibility of going out much at all as well.
So that 18,000 is a couple thing, right? So it's 9K.
Yes.
But how achievable is this kind of income?
So the thing about it in Malaysia is, if you are willing to, if you know how to work hard and work smart, earning about 9K is quite possible. But generally, most Malaysians will be earning about 3K to 4K, and that is because there's KL to offset the whole thing. Yeah, but if let's say you don't talk about KL, I see there are many people living in like maybe Malacca or even in like further rural areas. They're probably earning about 1,000 plus to 2,000 plus a month.
What about you? How do you even manage to save money to do anything?
So for me, I'm a little bit different because I started off as a financial planner. So as you all know, financial planners are commission driven, and we were earning quite well. So I was actually earning pretty well.
Right.
In Malaysia terms, I was earning as like about close to 300,000 a year. Yeah, and so it's considered high income.
Right.
But when I gave that up and did YouTube, then certainly the income dropped significantly. But even right now, we are a business, so it's a little bit different. So my income is generally very tied to our business.
Right. You mentioned that you did well, but what about all the other Malaysians who are like fresh grads, who don't have a commission-based income? How would you advise them to save money?
So in Malaysia, I think if you're a fresh grad and you want to save money, the only way really is to really budget. I think every country is the same. You've got to really budget. But I understand that in Malaysia, there's also a group where like maybe their fresh grad salary is about 2,000 plus only. Yeah. And if you're talking about 2002, 2003, honestly, the budgeting is going to be really, really tough as well. Really, really tough as well. So, but we also have a group of people who probably they graduated from better universities and they themselves are willing to learn a lot more, and therefore they are able to work in bigger MNCs, and their pay can straight away shoot up to about like 4K as a fresh grad. Right, Malaysian ringgit. And when you have 4K Malaysian ringgit as a fresh grad with no dependents, no nothing, honestly, it's very easy to save money.
Right.
It's going to be very, very easy to save money.
Actually, this situation is very similar to Singapore. Fresh grad pay is about 4 or 5K. And if you are single, you don't have to pay money to your parents, you don't have a kid. 4K is more than enough for you. So in this sense, I would say that if you don't have car, if you don't have to pay for a house, living costs in Malaysia and Singapore is actually very similar, very affordable.
So if you don't have a house, don't have a car, yes, it would be kind of similar. But unfortunately, a car is almost a basic necessity in Malaysia.
Right.
So naturally, that part will be taken out. So if your family is well-to-do enough, they bought you a car, then great, fantastic. If not, then you still need to pay like maybe 500 to 1,000 ringgit for a car every month.
Right.
Yeah. Then it comes down to lifestyle. I mean, if you're the kind that you also want to get nice clothes, buy nice watches and stuff, well, I guess no matter how much money you have, you're not going to be able to save. But if let's say you are quite thrifty, you jaga your money well, I think you will be still easily, if let's say your family don't depend on you, you can save up like maybe 50% of your income or even more.
And the bonus point, your car doesn't expire.
Yes.
In Singapore, you have to give up your car certificate after 10 years.
Oh, yes.
But in Malaysia, it's lifelong, as long as the car doesn't spoil.
Yeah, that's right. I think one thing I do notice is like the day I was talking to a friend, they were telling me that if you want to buy a BMW here, it's like let's say you talk about X3, it's about 200 plus thousand Sing dollar. That's just for the car without the COE.
Right.
So that kind of shocked me because Malaysia also is 200 to 300,000, but that's Malaysian ringgit, and we don't have a COE.
Right.
Yeah.
Given that living cost is so expensive in Malaysia, right? Why do you still decide to stay in Malaysia?
That is actually a very, very good question. A lot of people have been asking me that. Even my mom also asked me, why don't you just migrate and stuff, right? I think for me, definitely the main thing is because I'm very comfortable in Malaysia. I have all my family there. My friends are there. The idea of like moving out to a place that I have to build new connections all over again, it scares me, right? And on top of that, because I'm doing pretty okay in Malaysia, not very good but affordable, that kind, yeah. So that doesn't really give me that kind of motivation to say I want to leave.
Right.
And on the other hand, also maybe because I'm a bit more of a scary cat, because I feel like in Singapore there are a lot of people who are elite.
Right.
So in Malaysia, I can be a big fish in a smaller pond, but in Singapore, if I come here, I'm just like any other big fish, and there's plenty of other big fish who can just gulp me up and so there is also this fear definitely sometimes, and like because I'm not professionally trained, I don't have a professional degree in I just did like human development and business management, and I always have this perception that in Singapore the degree matters a lot. And so if I don't have a so-called professional degree and a public university in Malaysia, so you are considered less, the opportunity is harder. Now, then finally also starting a business, in my opinion, seems to be an easier thing in Malaysia, although it may not be system proven, right? But partially, like if I want to start a nasi lemak store, I can just go out the street, put a table, and I can sell something already. But in Singapore, I think I'm going to go jail, right? And probably the only choice is e-commerce or whatnot, right? And YouTube channel, which the business that I'm in. But again, in Malaysia, if I want to start a business, like back then in Malaysia right now, what we did is that we rented a cheap apartment and we use it as our office. So we have like 6-7 people going to office every day, and that's not a problem. But I don't think I can take a HDB and bring in 6-7 people every day in and work. I probably need to go to a commercial center and really, so those kind of costs are going to increase significantly.
Right.
So in these cases, starting a business in Malaysia is much more advantageous in my opinion. And also because my connections are all here, all in Malaysia, it's easier for me to go and talk and build relationships and build my first portfolio. Then maybe after that, when I have my portfolio that's successful in Malaysia, I can always take the exact same thing and go to another country like Singapore or whatnot, right?
Right. So let me just say something. Will Smith said something like the best thing in life are behind your fears. So if you can pass by this entire fear thing, right, you'll see a lot of opportunity that Singapore, I don't think is that scary at all. I have friends who graduated in Malaysia and they came here. Sure, in the beginning, they are earning like 1-2K Sing dollar, which is way lower than the fresh grads here. But within like 2-3 years, he has already caught up to my pay. And I think he has, at the time, even overtaken me. If you want a better opportunity in a way, Singapore feels like a place where you can grow your business much bigger because of so many talented people are coming here. They are looking for opportunity to grow. And if you become part of it, you also strive to succeed in a way.
I agree with you. In fact, that's one of the main reasons we are coming for a trip in Singapore, because over the past few months, there were already quite a few people telling us that maybe you should do a Mr. Money TV Singapore. And building like whatever that you're building there here, because there's much more opportunity, and that's certainly something we are considering. So if you guys would like to see a Mr. Money TV Singapore, like let us know in Kelvin's comment, right?
Right now you are staying in Malaysia probably because of family and a bit of fear. But if you are not bounded by any of these things, where would you have gone to?
Dangerous question to answer. I wouldn't go to US. Actually, we had the opportunity to move to US. We did not pursue that any further. They also didn't allow us to pursue any further as well. So my wife almost got a green card. Wow. Australia is not a place that I would love to go there and raise up my kid. I still prefer to raise my kid in the Asian context, typical China man feel. If let's say there's no fear, there's nothing, and money is not really the problem, I think Thailand and Indonesia are my first choice actually. Thailand and Indonesia, or even Philippines, because I feel like emerging country gives a lot of opportunity when it comes to businesses. So that's something that I enjoy. But I understand that it takes a very unique character to be able to strive and do well in this kind of country, right? Just like Malaysia. Now, Singapore, on the other hand, will also be a great choice because of the way the whole country is being set up. yeah, and the way that the government protects or make sure that the middle income group is always thriving.
Right.
Yeah, and that is something that I really enjoy. So if you talk about fear, like until that philosophical level, then if I remove everything, I think Thailand will be a nice place, yeah, or either Indonesia will be a nice place. But if you put in practical aspect into it in terms of government, societal, and stuff like that, I can say that Singapore is actually a very, very good place. And it makes me understand why many of my friends or Malaysians coming here, they keep telling me they're going to come back, but after a while they won't, because you don't have to be too I'm not sure, but somebody will probably scold me after this if I say, right? Yeah. Like it seems to me Singapore is a place that as long as you're willing to work hard, as long as you're willing to follow a system, you will be able to live a pretty decent life.
To put it in context, right? Living in Malaysia versus Singapore, the difference is that both of you are playing golf, but the handicap level in Singapore is much, like you are nearer to the golf the hole.
Yes.
You're nearer to your goal. It's way easier because of the strength of dollar, because of how government does things. They make things easier for you, even though Singaporeans sometimes like to complain about that. But when you compare it to like Malaysia, it's way easier. It's easier to save money. Like even if I'm earning 2K now, it's definitely possible in Singapore, but I feel it's not that easy in Malaysia. Opportunities are more here also.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, practical wise, Singapore is hard to beat.
I think if you put it in the context of playing golf, right, it's kind of like what you say is very true. Do you think of it this way? Like if you are playing golf in Malaysia and you play golf in Singapore golf will come to you and tell you a very clear set of rules, like what you need to do to get there, and they will make sure that everyone kind of have the same level of equipment, nothing too far away, like, yeah, there are some better equipment, but it's not going to be too far. You're going to start pretty much at the same level as much as you can. Yeah, as much as you can, okay? Now, but when it comes to Malaysia, the rules will be briefly briefed to you, but the rules can change halfway through, and the way it is executed, you need to be smart, because you need to be able to observe whether is it really going to be executed like that or like that. So you need to be smart, and there will be people coming with a GPS oriented golf stick. And you can't say much about it. Yeah, so there will be people who coming in and you probably don't even have a proper golf shoe to start with.
Right.
Yeah, and so yeah, it takes a very peculiar kind of character to be able to survive. It's not better, not worse,
Right.
It doesn't mean that Malaysians are better. It's just that in order to survive there, if you don't have a good background, you need to be more shrewd or be more. It's not just hardworking alone already.
Right.
There's no such thing as I just follow rules, because if you just follow rules, you can also die. So that is the thing in Malaysia or any emerging country, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a report showing that Malaysia is having a brain drain that's growing at 6% annually. What do you think is the biggest reason for this entire brain drain thing?
You are the reason, bro. A lot of people think that brain drain only affects like the minority in Malaysia, but actually no. There's a lot of majority who are also draining and going overseas.
Right.
I've many Umi friends who actually had the opportunity to get their JPA and they just stay there, they don't want to come back already, Yeah, so that's very, very common. What do you think contributes to that? I would say that definitely the main reason is politics. Yeah, I always think that Malaysia is a very beautiful country, but sometimes our political scene can be very disheartening. Sometimes you feel that life can be a lot more efficient and results can be much better just by doing away with it. And because it's such a big problem, it's not something that at a normal level we can change, right? So people just feel disheartened and move away. I used to think of this as something like, I would see like friends living now, like, you should stay in Malaysia, that kind of thing, right? Last time I would feel like that, but actually these days I don't even judge anymore. I just I understand why you live and great for you, because to think about it, especially we talk about the Chinese people, right? We have migrated like crazy along the years. We were actually from China. Our parents did the exact same thing, thinking that China is not that good during that Republic time, and
Right.
decided to come to Nanyang area, and that's why you and me are here in this place, right? So it's all about creating a better life for your kids.
Do you think that like this whole brain drain thing like will cause Malaysia a huge problem by in like 50 years time? It feels like there's not much talents left in Malaysia after a while.
So there's good side and bad side.
Right.
The bad side is I tell people the bad side that we all see is that there's less talent left in Malaysia, and therefore it's going to be hard for a country and stuff like yes on the bigger statistic and scale wise, right? On the bright side, on the other hand, is you become one of the very few that are talented. So every resources is going to jump to you at the moment you are
right.
slightly more talented, no?
There's lesser competition lah, in a way.
Yeah.
Right.
So it always comes down to this part where are you a big fish in a small pond or big fish in a big pond, right? So I always believe in that, and at least that works as my consolation for choosing the path that I chose at this point.
But just based on my thinking, I don't think Malaysian politicians are stupid. Some of them are, but most of them aren't. So they know that this brain drain thing is an issue, and I know that they will eventually tackle this problem. I don't think the Malaysian politicians will let this problem continue on for a while. Like even for Johor, they are setting up a task force to like look into how to improve things already. So yeah, I don't think this will be a huge problem 50 years down the road.
I think we never know where it goes,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's always new generation, and it comes down to what the government wants at the end of the day. I think we have some programs that are actually established, like My Talent and so on, where Malaysians who are from abroad can actually come back. So I've met a few Malaysians who actually left Singapore and went back, and they were doing very well here, and they went back. Yeah, and most of them go back and then start their own company, and they get super great tax breaks, you know, and stuff like that. Yeah, so it happens. But on the other hand, I think generally it comes down to education. I think the more Malaysians as a whole population become more educated, then there is less chance for racism politics.
Right.
Yeah, and so then it comes down to the direction of where we are headed to at the end of the day.
I think even if there's like racism politics, it actually makes Malaysians more resourceful. Like we know that things are hard there, and we stay there because we know that we can overcome it.
I think many Malaysians are doing very well in many other countries. I mean the same as Singaporean as well, right? Yeah. But generally, yes, when you're Malaysian, maybe since young, you're already given this thought. It's just like Singapore. When you're young, you keep telling your child that like, you better study hard, you better study hard, you better study hard, you better study hard, you've got no future, right? Naturally, what happens, generally Singaporeans, now your mathematic level is number one in the world, right? Every single country, you just need to put up, I'm teaching Singaporean maths. People want to go and tuition already because it's just the culture. And the same thing in Malaysia is that when you're living in Malaysia, your parents will always tell you this one thing, which you have the experience as well, that you need to find your way out. That's what our parents always tell us, right? Yeah, it's not just about study. It's like you need to do whatever you can because the government is not going to take care of you. That's something that our parents generally tell us. So what happens is that you will strive very hard to make sure that things are happening in your hand. Right. So whether or not you go US, you go Australia or whatever, you don't really wait for subsidy. You don't wait for things. You don't complain. You just do whatever is necessary. So even when people treat you unfairly, you just like, okay, fine, let's find a way around it. That's the mentality, you know, that comes out of generally people who are from a less developed or tougher country.
As a Malaysian, we like to compare things between Singapore and Malaysia. Which is better?
Malaysia.
So what do you like about Malaysia more than Singapore? Other than chewing gum.
Is it true that Singaporeans right now, at the moment you all go back, you all buy chewing gum?
I don't know. I never buy.
Then I was reading an article. The guy said that he lived here for 5 years. Now every time he go back, he buy chewing gum. It's just very normal. Yeah, pump petrol, I know lah.
Pump petrol, cheaper.
I think definitely what I like more about Malaysia is the people are much more simpler, I would say. The way that we think generally, it can be complicated, definitely, but I mean, the culture is much more simple, much more straightforward, much more open, much more warm in that sense. Yeah, to a great extent, it's much more warm because number one, we have a lot more space. So hosting someone to your house or like doing parties and like sharing resources is a very common thing in Malaysia.
Right.
But when it comes to Singapore, I understand why, because everything is so little. Like you know, the room size is not big, you know, and stuff like that. So like you want to show friend come unless very close up.
Right.
So actually I feel very proud when Singaporeans tell me, would you like to come my house? I actually feel very proud.
Right.
Yeah, because I know that it means something to them. Just like Hong Kong, right? If someone say like come my house, it's a big thing. The next part that I generally like about Malaysian is, like I say, I can just rent an apartment that's 1,200 ringgit, duplex, supposed to be a resident because it's cheaper, and I can bring in my whole team and work there. And it's very normal, right? So the cost of starting a business, if you're creative, it can be much low barrier in terms of, you know, you're not finding space because it's not exactly enforced. So these are the parts that I generally like about Malaysia. And the next thing is that also when it comes to work, this is the good and bad. I can't say it's entirely good. It's also because of the relaxed attitude. That's why Malaysia is not so efficient. But also because of the relaxed attitude, it allows you to be less stressful.
Right.
So I do realize that my Malaysian friends who do very well and come to Singapore, they are very, very stressed. They're very, very stressed. Yeah, because it's like as if you always have a target on your back where someone is going to chase you, that kind of feeling. I mean, it's not any less in Malaysia when you're doing much more, but
Right.
I guess to a certain extent, you can at least say these 2 days I take a break, right? Yeah, these 2 days I'm going to be more relaxed. But I realize that in Singapore, often, at least how they perceive is they can't even say that these 2 days I take off, because if I take that off 2 days, another guy is going to come in and say I can do his job. So that is the thing that I like more about Malaysia lah.
I think it's not a good or bad kind of thing lah. It depends on yourself lah. If you want more money,
Correct.
Come to Singapore. Then if you want to have a relaxed life, then just like stay in Malaysia, or even like some place like New Zealand, right? The shop close at like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
You have a more relaxed life.
Correct.
So in the end, it ultimately depends on what you value most in life lah.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's the same, right? Like if you think about like Singaporeans, most Singaporeans are so efficient, just like Honky and stuff, right? Very efficient. If you go to Australia, you cannot tahan because they are like so relaxed. They're like super relaxed. The only difference is because they are dollar bigger, so people don't say that they're lazy or whatnot. But we know at the back, some people say that, right? But generally, it's the culture, and so there's no good and bad to it. It's just which kind of lifestyle do you prefer to live in?
So to appease Singaporeans, what's one thing that you like about Singapore more than Malaysia?
Oh, there's no one thing, bro. It is almost everything. Okay, almost. I mean, I love the Malaysian people, right? Like I say, but in terms of system, I like the Singapore system. I think when it comes to cleanliness, I almost feel like if my kid were to sit on the street when we're walking, right, I won't scold him. Yeah, I'll be just like, oh, get up lah, you know. If it touches the ground, you know, I'll just, okay lah. Yeah, just wipe his hand. But Malaysia, I'll feel more, because it's much more dirtier, right? We can argue that because the land size is big and what's wrong. But I have to say that the town planning that I really love about Singapore is that I feel like I can walk to anywhere here. And even if it's super hot in the afternoon, right, I don't dread walking. Right. It's like in Malaysia, right, if it's afternoon, right, you ask me to walk out, like, no way, man. It's like 100 meters down, let's drive, right? Here it's like, walk lah. Because the way you set up the streets, the way you set up the trees, the pedestrian, and OKU friendly like crazy, like everywhere there's a ramp, like I don't have to worry one day I'm old, I'm on wheelchair, you know, I know I can survive here. Yeah, in Malaysia probably I'll fall down 10 times and die, you know. And when it comes to orderly, when it comes to the living standard wise, I noticed that like you talk about your place, right, the HDB, right, you got everything just there. Like, it's so convenient.
But actually this is one thing that I somehow come to dislike a bit, not everything, dislike a bit, because it feels like everything is a mini town kind of thing. Like for Singaporeans, when people tell me, oh, they are going for staycation, then I say, where? Staycation where? In the city area. Say, hey, I'm going to city area to work every day already. you staycation, you're going back the same place for staycation. But for Malaysians, when they go for staycations, they're going to another state. Like they're going to Malacca, they're going to Sabah, they're going to Langkawi or wherever. It's a much further place and it's a way different
Culture.
kind of thing. So that's one thing I like about Malaysians more. Even though like Singapore is very compact. It's good for efficiency, but there's not much thing to do in Singapore other than like shopping, then like cycling.
So that's why so I go island, I go diving, then I see what Singaporean. They will come regularly for diving. One thing I do have to add, Malaysian, one thing I love is the landscape.
Right.
Pretty beautiful, a lot of place to hang out.
Not to say that it's a bad thing so it depends from person to person To me, I like to visit more places, and Singapore has very limited amount of places where I can go.
What about Batam or Jurong?
Like how often will you go back to the same place every week? It's different for Malaysia. Oh, this week is Langkawi, next week is Bangkok, then Pulau Redang.
Yeah, and every place has a different culture.
Correct.
I think Singapore, one thing is that everywhere you go is the same. It's just Singapore.
I know that some Singaporeans want to migrate to Malaysia. Would you recommend them to migrate over?
Oh, I think yes. In fact, I think Singaporeans should also come to Malaysia and start a business. I think the way Singaporean think that is very amazing is that you always think international. And I think you should bring that to Malaysia in that sense. And coming to Malaysia to migrate here, I think you will be very happy because everything will be very, very cheap. Yeah, you can live in a nice bungalow. And then help to boost our economy with your spending, and then set up some business so that you can give us some business as well.
And the petrol is cheap.
Yeah, petrol is cheap. Yeah, you can drive a Porsche. You will likely come here and then have a Porsche or Tesla or whatnot, You'll be very happy. So come over.
I think that's all for today. Thank you for joining me in this interview. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, do check him out. He has a lot of good stuff, and I think the quality is definitely way higher than mine. So anyway, I think that's all for today. Like, share, and subscribe, as I'll be posting more videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. See you.
See you. Thank you very much.
Bye.